See,
This
Juliana,
conference will now be recorded.
Anybody who's watching the recording doesn't get the banter. But no, it's kind of like three friends that we get together, so it's fun. We haven't all three been in the same space for a while.
Yes. Great. We're good to go actually right now.
Excellent, excellent. Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the IC3 webinar on shifting the enrollment paradigm within enrollment management, how empowering high schools is critical. I'm Michelle Whittingham, the Associate Vice Chancellor of Enrollment Management here at the University of California, Santa Cruz. And I'm really honored to spend some time with some very, very dear colleagues and more importantly, friends that we have connected through focusing on counseling and really with the shared interest and shared goal of helping support students and families the best that we can. So I will have my colleagues go ahead and introduce themselves.
Rupa, you go first.
We get this.
Well, is the time to kind of get this rolling, and I'm Rupa Chakravarti, and I am from Gurgaon, from a school called Sun City World School, and it's a pleasure to be here and talking to everybody and going to be learning much more.
Great. And I'm Swaraj Nandan. I am the director and co-founder of KIC Unisys. We have been very fortunate to be involved from day one with the IC3 movement. Originally, my colleague and the chair of the IC3 conference, Ganesh, was supposed to be on this webinar. But as we speak, he's actually speaking about IC3 conference to a certain university in the US, and he wasn't able to join. So I'm glad to be filling in and really thrilled to be speaking about this very important topic about how universities and schools can work really in sync to drive the relationships that they share.
And one of the things I want to share with everybody that's joined us today is if you have any questions, feel free to use the chat box. You don't have to necessarily wait until we get all the way through. Our goal is to have a really robust discussion, not just present at you. And so feel free to type that up. We have about 12 slides, so we will go through thoroughly but fairly quickly, because one of our goals is to make certain that you have an opportunity to ask questions. And so our first overview is really focusing on the university-school relationship. And I think one of the key goals that we regularly talk about, and Rupa and I go back to 2017 when I first met her at Sun City School, and Swaraj, I think we go back, I'm not even sure how many years, but one of the things that we really think about is really how do we empower the schools, and especially with the IC3 movement, that really trying to bring counseling into the I think 140,000 schools, I think, in the Southeast Asia area. And what can we do as universities? I think we have a responsibility to help empower the schools. And I think of our universities, we talk a lot about internationalization, and I think this needs to be a part of that. I think when we go out and recruit, and I know, Rupa, you probably receive many, many hundreds of phone calls every year from university representatives. And I think for the universities, we want to be part of the solution. We want to be part of that value added to really look at enriching the counselors, the headmasters, the principals, their work, and not just having, again, our recruiters are critical, but I think looking beyond just contacting to make a recruitment visit. How as universities can we really differentiate ourselves and add additional value to the school site? And I think whether that's our other staff and faculty outside of admissions or enrollment management, how do we bring people in that can really support the school, the students, as well as the families? So I think that's good on this particular one. Again, I really think of the value proposition and what can we do to add that additional value. Go ahead, Shri.
Yes, so we need to understand that, knowledge is not just accumulation in your head. It's the skills that we build. And when we have a Trinity Triangle, between the students, the family, and of course the teachers or counselors, whatever. And but importantly, the community, becomes a part of this Trinity Triangle. We have a lot of skills coming into the students, and we know it's a skill-based learning and a skill-based world that we are going to be addressing. So it is imperative that we start bonding, connecting, and have this university high school connect to ensure that the Trinity Triangle is complete. What do you have to say about that, Michelle and Swaraj?
Yeah, no, I think, Rupa, that is so beautiful, because I think even if I look at this, we may even look at, again, I think you had just mentioned that the university is almost as part of that group of constituents. And I think the beautiful thing is when we're working together and really empowering the schools, that learning is going in so many different directions, that as universities, we're learning from people like yourself, we're learning from your students, we're learning from, the counselors, and absolutely we're learning from the parents. And so I think that's where the magic happens, when we go in with a really open mind, that we're not there just to deliver something in terms of our universities, but how can we really learn together and build those relationships?
That's true. We have a fantastic completion of the connect when the Trinity Triangle has the angles all appropriately set, because any of the bases shake, the apex shakes. And this is a theorem, not only a theorem, it's reality, right? So we need to be very careful. And when the anomalies come in decision making, is when the University High School Connect becomes a very beautiful path to go ahead and ensure that you're choosing something which is appropriate for the child. And when there is a disconnect between what the teacher is saying or the counselor is saying, what the parents want, and what the students believe they want, but when again there's an anomaly between the knowledge, the skill, and the understanding, So the Trinity Triangle for me is a multiple layered thing, beginning with the student, the family, the community, and then the PECs. At the base there is the teacher and the counselor. But at the same time, the next layer comes on to your skills, which have to be applied, your knowledge, and the third aspect, of course, your understanding, or being able to kind of connect all of them to apply. So I call it the ask, and I believe that's what will help if we can have this university and high school connect.
Next, right? I'll do my magical button. Forward.
I thought Swaraj would have something to say.
Well, I think I didn't want to disrupt too much, but essentially, Rupa, you really hit the nail on the head. Essentially, those three key pieces have to work so well in sync, because to your point, they also focus slightly differently on their priorities. Their priorities differ a little bit. The student may be focusing more on the academic path, but the parent wants to make sure that the university provides a very safe environment. So if the university is not providing each of the constituents with the factors or the information that they are looking for, they will be out of sync. Mm-hmm. And then it is very confusing. So every weekend now, because we are so close to the yield cycle, I have friends and friends of friends calling up because the student is confused or the parent is confused. But that is where a university can play such a key role if they're engaged in a much more holistic fashion with the school, impacting the parent, student, and the counselor with the information that they need. So if the counselor is completely holistically saying that the university one meets all the criterion, the parent has their information and the student has their information, that's when the university can completely convince a student that they would be a right fit. Most of the times what ends up happening is the engagement is very short for a short period of time, and they're only able to hit one of these components and not all three of them. And that is where we are saying that the engagement needs to be much more deeper so that they can address each of these constituents in a thorough fashion.
Yeah, no, and I agree with that. And one of the things you said, Swaraj, that is interesting, that I think it would be fun to kind of play off a little bit, is I think when we think about paradigm shifts as well, and convincing, I think you said this, if I heard it correctly, that, you know, the university would convince the student that that's the right place. And I think one of the paradigms that we have is really focused on presenting the information for students and families, and ultimately they need to decide, because my thought is we don't want to do any convincing necessarily, but we have to be hitting the right topics. And I think you said it really well. The parents may be more thinking about the safety, the students might be thinking more about, you know, whether it's the research or the academic program. And yet, again, to be a fly on the wall in some of those homes where those conversations are taking place, you know, during the month of April. And yet, again, making sure we hit those points. But ultimately, I think it's the student and family together with perhaps the counselor deciding where can that student really fulfill their potential, you know, where are they going to really thrive?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I strongly believe that when the anomalies happen, there is a lot of stress, uncertainty, which leads to a lot of you know, could be at times the child gets so caught in the quagmire that he's not able to focus and see the goal ahead as clearly as if he would have taken the decision where everybody in the Trinity Triangle agreed with the situation. So what I meant to say is that if the counselor has done a test and the outcomes are A, and the parents feel that the family, especially in certain countries like India, the parents feel that, you know, we need to do these courses only, you know, and then there are children, students who feel that, no, I need to look at what is, of course, a skill-based is something that we all are looking at, but what would the curriculum entail when I step into the real world? How much would I be able to contribute? Because I do feel, I think what Wordsworth said, that the child is the father of man, and it is coming true today, because children are far more informed than adults are. And they do, I'm sure everybody who's here will agree with that, you know, and we need to ensure that we give a voice to the students. So if I look at the impact areas in a school, the curriculum, like I said, we need to ensure that the students are equipped with the right knowledge, like I mentioned, of course, but definitely it has to be a more powerful weapon than knowledge, you know. It has to be something which is working, synthesizing all of the skills, the knowledge, the applications that could go into real world. So I think the curriculum, the way it is inducted and how it is transferred into an university, there should be a sync. That's very important, and that's where, Michelle, universities like yours, which has a huge reputation, could kind of step in and help schools, and by schools I mean the students, the part for a whole, that we have the students know how the curriculum would advance, how would it be ahead, you know, how they could take it ahead. Because till grade 10 or 10th grade, you find things to be of a particular level. And in 11th and 12th, it's different. And then when you go to graduation or undergrad in certain countries, it is very different. So the curriculum is one thing. I know for sure, I have seen it with many students, the co-curricular or extracurricular is another aspect that many universities lay a lot of stress upon. And there are still schools and high schools in India which are not laying enough, or even in other countries where they're not laying enough stress because they don't have the facilities. Right. So I think that's another thing that we need to talk about, and keep talking about the tests that the students have to do to understand their aptitudes, where the university can play a big role because they can come and do classes for the students, you know. And we've had this kind of an interaction with a lot of colleges where the summer program and also summer programs within the school helps students a lot. And what would you say about that, Suraj?
Sorry, I had myself on mute. So again, you know, all these areas are areas where the university can actually really help schools where, you know, to your point, they don't have that focus or the background for how the student resume needs to be or the profile needs to be built. Many times the student reaches 11th grade, and that's when they realize that extracurricular, when they start writing their essay, would have been very important to build their profile. And I think a university can actually help schools understand the importance of this, so that right from 8th grade onwards, students are very clear about the 3, 4, or 5 areas of extracurriculars that they can develop during the school years. So what we are saying is not for, all these key areas probably already exist in the school, but I think with the university's help, they can become so much better with a clear understanding of what may be required of a student as they get ready for college.
And let me tell you about the Clarion Call some parents get only in grade 11, because they've realized the college is going to take them only if they have A, B, C, D, co-curricular activities to their CV, or when they are writing their LORs, the school has to reflect that. And then they say, can you do this for my child? So it's so driven towards a goal, but with not the right attitude, So Michelle, I think that's where colleges like yours and many other universities and colleges can play a huge role to ensure, and it should start younger, because if you would start younger, it would be much more effective, 11th becomes more, a little later on, it does not sometimes allow the parents or the students to change their frame of mind.
Yes. Well, and I think maybe that's going to be a key question, is how can universities do that more effectively earlier? And so I think that may be the, again, as we look at doing this, and I know that you and I've submitted, we'll do a shameless plug here. I know we've submitted a proposal. We don't know if it's been accepted to the IC3 conference, but I think it's really this continuing this discussion of universities might be here, schools are here, and how do we continue to understand what the needs are and most effectively bridge that gap. So I totally agree, because yeah, by 11th and 12th grade, it's never too late, but it's kind of too late.
Yes. I mean, when you're molding children, I know there are children who make up their minds when they're in 6th and 7th and 8th, and because they are very, very focused. But there are children who will dilly-dally till grade 11 maybe, and then suddenly realize, and we've had such a case where the parents force the child to take sciences because the mother is an Air Force, she works in the Air Force, and she's a pilot, and she felt her son should do the same thing. And the poor child didn't know what to do, and they came to me and said, let's drop a subject for this child. And I said, now when the exams are just going to be a year later, I said, why don't you try it? And we tried, but the poor child did not fare well even then, because it wasn't the child's aptitude, it was more the parents' attitude which determined, So here we need to have these campus exposures, whether globally or multiple campus exposures. By multiple campus, I mean to say within the country, with the neighbors, the neighboring countries also, and have a multitude cultural and traditional exchanges, so that they know that how they would adapt. There is a child who had depression because he couldn't get over the cultural shock. His parents had to get him back. So this is where I feel the campus exposure is very important. Let them stay there for 10 days all by themselves, understand what it is, and then they would be able to do the university school connect better. And the pathways was one thing which I felt was very useful for the school engagement in the university school connect, because when students don't have the language, and I know some of the Indian schools, some of the Chinese schools, from Germany, I have met students who could not get into the curriculum because they felt they didn't have the language aptitude. They did not have certain other things that they could kind of work upon, and they felt they would not be doing well in the colleges. And that's where the pathways come in. And would you like to highlight that, Michelle, a bit more?
Yeah, I think that several universities, and that's why I'm really understanding the various opportunities that are there and where students can come in at different places. And especially for students who don't have their curriculum in English, sometimes that can be a challenge, whether, we're looking for the English proficiency, and different universities offer different programs that, again, thinking of the value added to make sure if you have those programs, you're highlighting those various pathways. And so I think it's really critical, and it's hard because we only have to know one university. Counselors and principals like yourself and headmasters are trying to figure this out globally. And so trying to make certain that we have, whether it's even on the website or providing this information, because it's challenging for people at the high school site to navigate to figure out who has what. But yes, I think there are different pathways available to help the students. And one of the pathways people forget about, even within the US, and everybody has different perspectives on it, is that community college pathway as well. We every year have over 1,000 students, close to 1,500 this year, that start out at the local community colleges in California and then transfer. So that's another way, if they're, the proficiency of English may not be there, or maybe the curriculum that's required from high school to get in. And I think, Rupa, you hit on something, excuse me, that I think is really beautiful and yet really challenging, because there are so many options. I think that can be confusing, and yet it's the beauty of, higher education, is that it's not a one size fits all. There's so many different opportunities, including those pathways. And Rupa, when you think about this, I loved what you said, and that's one of the things that always breaks my heart, is when you see a student, and this I think really was the inspiration for the IC3 movement, is when there's kind of a mismatch, that the students' passion and gifts might be here, but they're being pushed to go into business or engineering, but maybe they're English literature or, their music. And so I think one of the things, and tell me what you think about this, is that maybe universities can even do a better job highlighting various majors. So when you think of a pathway being something totally different, and one of my favorites is, the CEO of YouTube, Susan Wojcicki has, an economics graduate degree, and nobody locally or globally can guess what her undergraduate degree was. And it was English. And so people are amazed. And so I tell the potential English students, well, when people ask, what are you going to do with an English major? You could say, I'm going to become a CEO of a tech firm. And so I think that's something, and whether it's music, and I think Ganesh has done such a great job over the years thinking of students who are passionate about video games. That is a multi-billion-dollar industry. And so maybe that's something, again, when we're guiding young people and doing things, we can try to highlight some of those other majors that may help the students with their parents, actually, because my dream is you want to foster, because people, and again, I'm hearing Ganesh and his teacher, fourth grade teacher, Molly, that you want people to have a really fulfilling career. And if you're in something that, and maybe it makes a lot of money, and I'm going to pick on engineering, but your calling is something else, how do we help support the students in having that discussion with their family members?
And to be able to do, the vertical has to be supported a lot. So when by that I mean to say, if you are going to be doing economics, it's not enough for you to just do economics, and prepare yourself accordingly, because economics could be in any field. It could be in agriculture, it could be in human resources, it could be in any of these things, it could be in music, So are you prepared to put the props over there to that vertical that you are kind of building to go ahead? And that is when I feel the summer jobs, at least we do it in our school, and it is an excellent way of going ahead and getting amalgamation of your knowledge, your skill, and then your application. And we've had like a student of biology going to a hospital, and she was allowed to go and have a look at some diagnosis that was going on, and she just saw a wound and she fainted. So it was sure that, she could not be going in for medicine now. And then, because she was so clear she needs to go for medicine. And that's where the role of universities and campus exposure, comes in. Besides that, also the link is actually, the gap is bridged by people like universists, and when we do an IC3 conference and the likes, who would be then showcasing what happens when things go awry, because what you intend, what your attitude and your aptitude is a big mismatch.
Yeah.
So
Well,
I think it's sorry.
Yeah, no, ruling things out is just as valuable as, and people forget that. So no, I'm glad that
Like
you
Thomas
mentioned.
Edison, he said he didn't fail 10,000 times. He eliminated 10,000 of the failing or the ways that he could fail to win or to succeed. So I think that's what it is.
Right. Just to add, because what I wanted to share was, from a curricular standpoint, you were mentioning a lot of times people the students don't really understand the programs. So and for universities, I know we focus many times on the enrollment piece directly, but there are so many times one of our faculty members is traveling to a certain country. Many times we don't even get to know about that. But if we do, I would really encourage you to request that faculty member to take an extra day and just visit schools in the city that they are going to. Because a half an hour session that they can provide about an insight into computer science, or an insight into linguistics,
Yes.
or an insight into psychology. Many times the student thinks that they want to pursue a career or a certain field, not really understanding what's the latest that's happening in that field. And that half an hour session by a faculty member may be life-changing for them. And not only that, the schools actually appreciate that more than, I'm sorry, but a typical visit by an admissions officer.
Yeah.
So the moment something like that happens, the next time the admissions officer goes, you get so much more traction with the students, because now those students understand, they have heard a professor speak, they now understand your university so much better than what you were trying to convince them. And so the enrollment comes sort of as a sweet byproduct.
Yeah.
You now don't have to try as hard. So please leverage those faculty visits. And again, as Rupa was talking about the summer jobs, you don't necessarily have to provide summer jobs, but if you can provide insights into other students who have taken summer jobs and been successful, or ways in which that the school can actually work with the industry nearby to, many times the schools don't necessarily need actual help. They just need some guidance of how other schools have done it, or how schools in the US are doing it. So many times it's just that value addition of guiding them. And if you just do that extra half an hour call, that could be now the differentiating factor into you having a stronger relationship with the school.
Well, I think that goes back to where we started with the value added. Where can we add that additional value? And I think I've heard others say, a lot of the admissions information is really clear online, but getting that person that has that expertise and what they're doing, what the careers are, what their students are doing, I think can just add a whole different level of understanding and value. Yeah. Well, and I think this next example, we'll keep moving to make sure that we have plenty of time for some engagement and questions. This is something that one of our faculty here, Raja Guha Takurta, he actually, and I think Suarez, this gets back to your point, he is an astrophysicist, and he'd been working on a program here in the summer called the Science Internship Program. And it was really a teacher over at the Harker School in the San Jose area that gets a lot of credit, even as this became the Global Sphere Network, because she had some really amazing students that wanted to engage in research at the university in the summer. And so it was this teacher that reached out, and I think that Raja's wife was involved. So one of those things that, okay, that you need to do this. And so he brought high school students on the campus in the summer to work with, undergraduate students, graduate students, and faculty on authentic research. He then did a sabbatical with Google, actually, to say, how can we increase the scope of this so that, this is really life-changing. And imagine a high school student on the campus in the summer doing authentic research. This isn't made up research for a project. This is actual research faculty are doing. So by doing the sabbatical at Google, you can see on the slide there that this launched much bigger, and he wants students in China to be able to work with local universities, and in India with local universities, or students, right here in Santa Cruz working with the university. And then better yet, bringing together the students from New York and India and China on different university campuses and exposing them. And again, talk about being transformative, that even a lot of undergraduates sometimes don't expect to do research. Often people have a perception that you have to wait until you're a graduate student, but this is just life transforming. And I think, Rupa, going back to you, there's so many different topics, but the authentic research, and a student might rule something out as much as ruling something in. But it's something that even then helps them with their leadership skills, their communication, certainly their university application process to say, you've been on a college campus working on authentic research. And so this is something that, again, I think as university representatives on this webinar today, finding out who those faculty are. And it's not always easy. We're on large campuses, or no matter what your size is, and probably every faculty member isn't doing something like this, but finding your key faculty members, and it may start with a small group, that can be really transformative. And Raj has now been at the IC3 conferences. I swear he would love me to, he's like a little kid going to the conference. He'd never been to an education conference. He'd only been to the astrophysics. And so now looking at this continuum with the high school, the undergraduates, the graduates, and the faculty has been phenomenal.
Yes.
I think that's a good example that, again, you can see the other universities there and other organizations really trying to launch this on a global, literally a global network, all for the benefit of the high school students and really exposing them early on.
Absolutely.
I think it gives a great opportunity. And then I think you had mentioned earlier as well, Rupa, the summer. I know sometimes, we forget to talk about it. Again, when you go out and your staff are going out, you can't just focus on how to apply in admissions and what's great about your university, but again, you're constantly listening to your constituents. And I think, Rupa, what you mentioned earlier is kind of even the acculturation process, and whether it's a local university or another university abroad, we have amazing, robust programs in the summer where students can take full-on college credit. And we developed a high school university program so that they're coming in with other high school students, but you're sitting right next to other university students from our campus, as well as some of the students who come back home for the summer. They're taking classes. So it's full-on college credit. You have opportunities to take those credits and really begin to move things forward. And better to find out, there's often 8-week programs, sometimes there's 5-week programs. And what better to get a little taste of what is university life like in the US at particular universities. And I would encourage, counselors and students, and a lot of people do camps in the summer, which is also super valuable. But I think a lot of people forget that you can actually take university classes often in the summer and start earning college credit. So I think that's another of many different opportunities to find out. And again, I think even recently when I was in India, people were concerned that it was maybe developmental or remedial, but this is actual faculty members. Sometimes they want to take the summer or the spring off or the winter because they're working on their research. So then in the summer, they're teaching the classes. And imagine the contact with the faculty, other services. You're not on campus with 20,000 students. You're on campus with a much smaller number.
Great. And again, these examples are just, we just wanted to provide some examples of how universities are currently getting engaged with schools. So this is just the tip of the iceberg. Many universities are doing some groundbreaking works, but the ones that we've heard of, we just wanted to offer them as suggestions because many of you may want to take them back to your teams. And discuss it internally in terms of what is the right fit with your strategy. There's no one way of really getting engaged, but one of those ways may actually synergize better with your strategies. And regardless of how you engage, a bigger engagement is always going to be better for you. So this is one other examples where the Mount Holyoke College has gotten sort of engaged with the American School of Bombay. So this program started since 2016, and essentially it's a leadership program for young women. What they do is for a period of 2 to 3 days, they bring in motivational women speakers from the industry. And it's an idea for 11th and 12th grade children to get an idea of, how to be more dynamically involved in the industry going forward, so and to choose careers. And I think it's a phenomenal way of, how Mount Holyoke College has now gotten engaged with the American School of Bombay, and it's being done on an annual basis. So just something very different, something that has a leadership component, something that has a sort of a non-profit component, and women empowerment. Just a fantastic way that they have differentiated themselves in terms of their relationship with the American School of Bombay. Shri, the next slide, please.
Well, as he's changing the slides, I would like to just add over here, in one of the colleges that I visited, they had the Hyatt in the premises, because the hospitality division would then ensure, or the hospitality section of the university would ensure that the students got training in that hotel. So they kind of catered to all parents and the community to come there, and the students would be doing the work, whether it be of a chef or whatever. So I think these are the best ways of ensuring there's skill development, and going forward, it's one, as the school head, I feel this is very important to understand and partake of.
Great. And then just in light of that, another example, many of the universities offer some form of scholarships. Yes. And the key is, do you just offer one kind of scholarships across the board? Do you offer special scholarships for a certain country? And then take it to the next level, do you offer some special scholarship for a certain school or a certain group of schools? In many cases, these scholarships don't really need to be very different from what you offer for the entire international community. But the fact is, if you can brand it in partnership with the school, it offers them a sense of exclusivity. It offers them a sense of prestige. And many times that is the difference of that gaining much more traction with the school. So for example, in this case, some of the universities have actually formed some special scholarship programs for UWC schools. 3 of the universities that are featured here, or we made a mention of: University of Hong Kong, UCL London and UCL Belgium, the American Grad School of Business Switzerland. So what they have done is, for the UWC schools, they're offering special scholarships. These are not the only ways. We know of many other universities that have actually said, okay, you know what, for this school, we know for a fact that every year 5 students apply from here. Let's make sure that we guarantee them 2 scholarships. They would have anyways given those 2 scholarships out. But by guaranteeing those 2 scholarships, now there's more branding within the school. The students will become much more aware that there are special scholarships just for their school. And hence, there is just a higher level of engagement for the right fit students. And to Michelle's point, we're not trying to do a force fit, but we are trying for the students to make an informed decision.
Absolutely.
Now, there is so much clutter out there. How are you as a university going to stand out in the mind of the student, in the mind of the counselor, in the mind of the parent? It's only when you will have something exclusive, when you will have something special. How will you make that relationships more special? So this is one other way of getting engaged, of getting some top of mind recall. Because now if you have a special scholarship for that particular school, you're bound to get some more eyeballs on your message and get some more traction with that school. Anything that you would like to add, Michelle, Rupa?
No, I think that's really good. I think that one of the things you added, and again, I think you have to look at your own university, whether you're public, whether you're private, you know, what your goals are, because I think it has to carefully align. But I think you're right. I think we hear that more and more, the exclusiveness, this prestige, and sometimes it's in how you present it, because people don't know that maybe everybody gets it. And so trying to put it in a way that does differentiate it, but I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, and in many cases, it's not about the amount.
Yeah.
It's about making them feel special. You know, I know for a fact that, you know, when I travel to Brazil or I travel to India, when they get the dean's scholarship, it's all about the prestige. You know, the parents feel so happy. It may be $2,000. You know, may not really make a big difference from a financial standpoint, but the parent can go and brag to their neighbor that their son got the dean's scholarship or their daughter got the dean's scholarship. And so many times it's about the branding. And so if a little more effort can be put into that with specific schools that are a good fit from a student profile fit with your university, I think you can do so much better.
Absolutely.
And then one final example that we wanted to share was about counselor fly-ins. And I know many universities do this by themselves. There are some others from, you know, that are thinking about it. We think it's a great way for you to engage with your schools. You know, and this is just one example that we are sharing. This is a US university on the West Coast who has, for the last 7 years, actually done counselors, hosted counselors, and their applications are significantly up, and the quality of applications is also up. So we have actually seen that happen with this specific university. But for your universities, I'm sure when the counselors visit, we have so many times seen the aha moment, and the aha moment is when they are on campus and they sit with a faculty member or they're sitting with you and they interact with some students and they immediately say, I know those 2 students in my school are a great fit. This is exactly the environment they need. So that cannot happen if that counselor doesn't come and touch your university campus. And we feel recruitment is a two-way street. Yeah. You cannot, right now they're getting overloaded with requests for universities to come and visit the school. So how will you differentiate? They're not going to be able to visit 500 universities, but let's say they go and visit 20. Is your university going to be one of them? And if you can be one of them, if you have the budgetary back, you have some budgets to back it up, this is one great way of differentiating yourself, because not only are you going to get a higher number of applications, but you're also going to get a higher fit in terms of the students that are applying. And I know Rupa has been on, on many, and Michelle has hosted, so I welcome them to share their experience.
Do you want to start, Rupa?
Yeah. Oh, I have so much to say, and I know we're just running out of the minutes now because it's just 9:14, and we've got to give them time for the question answer round or the QA. Well, I can tell you it was such an eye-opener, whichever visit I've gone for, and one of the biggest eye-openers that I had was when I went through Universist to the US and saw the colleges. I remember in this particular college, and I think it was one of the UCs, where we had cancer research going on. And there was this room where they had the yellow lights, yellowish orange lights, because they said in that color light and at a particular temperature that they maintain, they can have the particular bodies which multiply or do not multiply. I'm not sure what it was. That's why they have that color and they have the temperature, So for me, it was such a huge learning. The second learning was when, again, we went to one of the colleges and they had this virtual bed because you're not allowed to do dissection anymore. So they had this virtual bed on which they do their dissections now. Again, that was a huge learning for me, And similarly, the hotel that I talked about within the campus, and there were some of these very not at all known colleges where I went, and I was pleasantly surprised to see the kind of curriculum. Like there was this college where the sports was excellent, yet they weren't very well known. They had 2 ice skating rings, they had I think 5 or 6 basketball courts and tennis and a full Olympic size swimming pool. So for me, it was huge. And even going to the community colleges for the various learning thing, it was a big learning for me. And I have seen similar kind of learning in other countries where the government has also got involved, and they have shown us how they would be generating power through air, using the wind power and etc. So I think it is very important to have a look-see for because now I know I can counsel all of them as can my counsel.
Quick question. So after experiencing some of those things, did you actually recommend some students to look into those specific universities?
Absolutely. I counsel them personally. I said, look, you're interested in sports, you want to look at this, or you want to look at, let's see, say being a physiotherapist for sports, you need to go here, because these are very specialized areas. And when I saw it, now I'm a sports person, so for me it's very important to know a lot about these sporting things. So I think it really helps. There are a lot of students out there who want to do art, who want to do fashion designing, and if you know which college, which bit fits which to make the puzzle fall into place, it's very helpful.
I think that's a great learning, because the whole idea of this was, linking the university to the school to basically then say that the enrollment management can actually come as a byproduct. And that is what we are hearing through Rupa's experience, that by her visiting a certain university, because she was now clear about their programs, that message sort of came back and reached the students and the parents. So we're basically trying to connect the circle.
Yeah, well, it is beautiful. And I just have to add, in addition to all of those, Rupa, I have to share the experience we had recently there in Delhi. And I'm really selfish as an administrator as well. And I think for campuses, it can be really rejuvenating to meet the individuals working with the students. And who would have thought Rupa had somebody from Colombia, our dear colleague Lena, and so we all end up in Delhi together at the same time, and all because of the tours. And so now I was connected to Lena. I mean, it's just beautiful. So the relationships, again, all of the other things are absolutely critical, but I think there's really meaningful relationships that are built so that Rupa could call up or WhatsApp and say, hey, curious about this. And so I think you can't underestimate the value of that. So we better keep moving, or we're going to just keep talking to each other.
Let's keep moving, and we'll just spend another 2 minutes on the IC3 advocacy program. So again, these were some of the examples. The idea again is to share some examples with you of things that other universities are doing. This we wanted to highlight the IC3 advocacy and adoption program, because that's another area where if you would like to get more engaged with some schools, the idea is that each university can actually choose to partner with between 1 and 5 schools who have raised their hand where they need help with more counseling. And the whole thing is, you don't need to make a financial commitment. If you want to you could actually make a financial commitment and provide that financial support directly to the school. IC3 does not get involved with the financial piece. But if you don't have financial commitment, all they need is your time and your help and your guidance. So what you could do is you could provide a certain number of hours a quarter in helping the school, guide them about how to set up a counseling office. And then once they have identified a resource, make that resource, help them come up to speed, train them about, what is it in terms of what should they focus from helping students to understand the application process. How can they help students right from 9th grade onwards? So, help them understand about international countries and the curriculums, and what is really required from a student preparation standpoint. So the idea is not to really put financial commitment, but if you can actually give your time, that can provide you to have a special relationship with the school. In terms of the potential benefits, you could have potential branding of the counseling office. You will definitely have a deeper engagement with the school administration. You will definitely get more brand awareness. And as we have heard through our experiences, the student recruitment, again, we have anecdotal information that it does lead to increased student recruitment from the region. So if you have a higher engagement with those particular schools that you would adopt and support, we think that it's going to get you additional traction with your student enrollment.
Excellent.
Yeah. So
well,
in the interest of time, I think I'll hand it back to Michelle. We'll be happy to take any questions even after that in terms of the IC3 advocacy program. You can send an email to info@ic3conference.com, and we can get you connected with the right people there.
Excellent. Well, I think at this time we want to quickly pivot to make certain that anybody who's joining us has an opportunity to either ask questions, make comments, and share your perspective, because the three of us are here, but we could have people from all over the world really co-presenting with us. And so again, whether it's a question, a comment, an observation. And if you don't ask, we might just keep talking.
Can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
Can you hear me?
Is this Juliana?
No, this is Lei.
Okay.
I have a question about actually, my recruitment, most time we are facing the students from China. Okay, so the parents would like to hire agents. So the question is, sometimes we invite counselors to visit our universities. However, I'm not sure how much influence a counselor can have if the parents just by culture like to hire agents. So that's why we have this conflicting view, like, should we really, it's like return of investment for us to, spend money on the counselors, or is it actually better for us to invite parents or students to visit our colleges? So we kind of have these conflicting views. I would like to know your feedback on that.
Yeah, I might go ahead and start, and certainly Swaraj and Rupa, feel free to join. I think the point that you raised is really, really critical. And there's general strategies, but then there absolutely have to be strategies based on different regions of the world for exactly what you've described. And I know that it's something that we face too here that's really challenging, what is the best way? And I think that often, to me, I'm always big into kind of strategy mixes, to not just do one thing for everybody, but looking regionally to say, for this area or this region, we may also need to do X, Y, and Z, because doing the same thing for every region of the world isn't going to work. And yet, it's also certainly expensive. And you're from the high school side, correct?
No, actually, I'm from the, I don't have you heard Into University Partnership?
Okay.
Several universities actually have the group, and then we present the several universities, and then so you can actually, I would say, like, I'm actually from the university, point of view. We invite counselors to visit the different universities, and then the counselor try to convince students, yeah, this is the best university, and then the parents hire the agents back in China, and the agents, of course, have their own interests, and they will say, oh no, actually this university is better. So,
yeah, no, it's challenging. And I think one of the things that we look at, and we've had some mixed groups that come to visit, and while most of the universities, and certainly within the UC system, do not work with agents, sometimes if they want to visit the campus, because they're going to represent us, whether or not we're working with them. And so sometimes we look at, again, we don't hire them, but again, if people want to know more about our campus, we're going to be open to that. But I would think that there still may be some value for some of the counselors, but again, I think you're going to have to really modify that based on the relationships you may already have.
And if I may jump, I think it has to be a multi-pronged strategy, Lay. I myself do travel to China, and yes, I do understand that a lot of times the parents sort of go to the agents, but I think you're engaging with the high schools can actually be a stronger mechanism for you to engage directly with the parents. The reason why many of them do end up going to agents is either they are not being able to connect directly with the universities, the parents are not being able to, sometimes because of language reasons, etc. But if you're able to actually engage with them directly through the high schools, we have seen that that can be a very, very powerful way of you to connect directly and engage with the students and the parents. So again, there is no one particular strategy. You would probably have to employ multiple things, at least in the short term, so that you can have a holistic strategy.
Well, and let's go to Juliana's question now, if we can. What is the most important thing to experience on campus when we host counselors? Rupa, I think that one would be ideal for you to respond to.
I was in China along with Swaraj in October, or was it September? We were in China, and I remember meeting some parents who had a lot of queries because I was just there walking around, and it's very easy to let parents know it's like piracy and the original. So when you have agents, it's via, either you could say that you are looking at buying your flight ticket through an agent, or you could directly go to the website and buy your flight ticket. It's like that. So when you are directly getting information from the horse's mouth, why would I go via media is a question I have as a person who's heading a school. So I think that's one of the things that we could look at. The second thing is when parents talk about agents, the money aspect is far more. So they think that they're going to get higher results, which is not true. Sometimes the money involved may be very high, but you may not get the desired results just because they're taking a lot of money. But if they can get access, like Swaraj, I think, sorry, you said that if they have direct access, or was it Michelle? I'm sorry, I get confused. If you have direct, sorry.
Yeah, I'm so sorry, Rupa. Are we going to be cut off directly at 9 a.m., Swaraj, or do we have a little flexibility?
I think we have some more time, but Rupa, we really were trying to understand for you when the universities host counselors on campus, what would be the one thing that you would like to experience?
The first thing I would like to experience is to let the children know what exactly the colleges offer, of course. Secondly, I would want them to know what are the expectations from the students. That's very important. What are the expectations from the students? And thirdly, it is important for a person who is who knows it all and has a perspective of an overall perspective or an overview, should be able to make a presentation and talk to them that these are the things that you need to look at in a college. I think these three things are very, very important. The expectations both ways, and somebody to bridge the gap and ensure that both have understood each other, So that's where I'm coming from.
Excellent. Any other questions? And thank you, Shri. I see we're not totally tight exactly. We're not going to all disappear right at 9.
Hopefully, I just messaged Shri about that.
You're so good. I see these magical notes popping up. I love technology when it works. Any other questions or observations or things that you might add? Maybe not. Well, I just want to say thank you, Swaraj and Rupa. It's been such a pleasure to be online with you here today. So it's fabulous and to hear. And again, we're all constantly learning. And so I think that that's really a theme that I hear. And I always feel as long as
there will be more discussion about this at the conference. So I hope that everybody is planning to join the IC3 conference in Mumbai. We hope to see you. And if you do have questions that were not answered there, or it may be personal, please send us emails, and we will be happy to get back to you with our responses. Rupa?
Well, all I can say, it has been a pleasure to be here, and I'm so glad there were people whom we could help, I think, because I saw a couple of thank yous. And Michelle, of course, as usual, you've been a perfect person to connect the university with the high school. And thank you, Suraj, for inviting me to be a part of this.
Yes, thank you both.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Hope to see everybody at the IC3. That's going to be some reckoning to do over there at Mumbai. And of course, we have also people going around having a look at everything that is there for them to see as a tourist.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you all. Take care.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Bye. Have a great day.
Yes.